and welcome. You're tuning in to Unbreakable Hope with me, your host, Jessica Rose. This podcast is all about seeking the light. In each episode, we chat with someone who has either overcome the darkness or who is actively spreading light within their own community. So let's jump into today's episode. I have a lovely guest for you today. It is Lynn Palin, who is Miss Queen of the World USA. And she has an amazing story of all the things that she has done in life, things that she has overcome, things that she is doing. I am so excited to be sharing this story as we talk about what it's like being an adoptive mom, being a mompreneur, also her work in Heal Sis, as well as her amazing, amazing passion project, which her and I have so much in common for. I cannot wait to dive into this episode so you can learn more about her, her journey, and all the amazing work she does. Well, I'm so excited to have you on. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been excited to speak to you for quite some time now. I wanted to speak to you when you reached out to me prior to me even winning Miss Queen of the World USA.
Yeah, I thought just the timing of everything was so amazing. So I'm so excited to be able to actually get to talk and your willingness to be on the podcast and share more about your story and your platform and all the things. So I'm going to pass it over to you and let you just kind of jump in and introduce yourself to the audience and we'll just get going.
Well, for those of you watching, or I hope for you to be watching, my name is Lynn Palin. I am your newly crowned Miss Queen of the World USA. My passion project, as I like to call it, not my platform, is called Lift. We are a community dedicated to mental health through physical fitness and meditation. And Lift stands for lead, inspire, foster, and take action. And, I'm currently working with different schools and organizations, gyms, mental health workers to just propel my passion project and help, especially younger children, learn how to deal with everyday stress in life. I am 40 years old. I am what I like to call a mompreneur. So I'm a mom first, an adoptive mom, and then I am also an entrepreneur. So I have multiple businesses and multiple projects going on, including my beauty bar, Face La Vie, and it's a luxury skincare and beauty bar. And then I have a luxury skincare line, which I've been passionate about for 20 plus years. And then I also am a mentor, self-branding, and development coach with a company called Heal Sis. And I actually met the person I do business with through pageantry as well.
I love how much pageantry brings people together. And I also thank you for saying that too about the passion project, because I think we talked a little bit about this before versus platform. Because I think one of the things that my coach said that was really powerful is she said, does it matter if you actually win the crown? Or are you going to keep doing what you're already doing? And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm going to keep doing what I'm already doing. Like, duh, I've already been doing it. And she said, then that's the point. So I love that you made that distinction. Like, this is your passion project and how much it ties into a lot of the work that I do in the suicide prevention space and the adaptive sports space. So we just have so much in common, which is really great. I'm a mom I have a stepson who's 19 and just owning my own business. We have a lot in common, and pageantry just really brings that together. There's so many amazing women out there already doing amazing things and are just beautiful on the inside and out. So I love that pageantry is kind of what brought us together as well.
Mhm.
I'm super excited to hear more about some of the things that you've been able to do because of pageantry and maybe something that your new title is going to be able to help advance some of these things that you are working on.
Well, pageantry is a community, right? And I found a home within that community and I really love it. And I wasn't really a part of it until about 2 years ago. So I did my first pageant about 2 years ago and I just fell in love with the community of women because like you said, we are a community of women that are doing just so much. And I find a lot of times people are like, why are you doing that? You're doing so much. Stop doing that. And with pageantry, women collectively just want to do more and they want to service their community. And you find a collective voice within that. So it's been amazing. And finding people that want to do more it has been amazing for me.
It's definitely a great opportunity to be able to network with other like-minded women. I mean, it's not easy, that's for sure. I have greatly enjoyed it. I've only done it for, well, I guess not even a year now. So in the system that I'm in, I got my title in April of last year, and then we competed for USA in July, August, like into July. So we're going to be competing again this year in July, and I'm just really excited to be able to have a full year to connect more with all of my sister queens and then learning about all these other different pageant systems because there's so many out there doing so many amazing things, and I absolutely love that. I can't believe you've only been doing it for 2 years. That's really exciting.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you have a vision and like you said, does the crown matter? I mean, I feel that for me, I was going to continue to do what I wanted to do, but I really had my eye on Queen of the World because the system for me, when I found out what it meant, beauty redefined and modern pageantry and all the things that it represented, I really wanted to be a part of that system, regardless of whether I got the crown or not. And so I'm very fortunate to have been aligned with the system and the system aligned with me. And here I am today. So it's been a just a beautiful process for me. And it's been an internal process. And I think that's really what a lot of people don't understand getting into pageantry or don't understand about pageantry itself is that it really is an internal journey. And especially like what I would say to any queen that wants to get into pageantry or isn't getting the crown or anything like that. If you're looking left and you're looking right and not looking inward, that's where your misstep is because as long as you looked inward the whole time and you were true to yourself the whole time, it really doesn't matter whether you walk away with a crown. You know that you've done the work and it's in an internal space.
I think that is amazing and beautifully said. And I'm sure that's something that you really get to help a lot of people with your mentorship at Healing Sis. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what is it like being able to mentor people? Is there a certain theme that maybe comes up a lot as you're mentoring women through Healing Sis?
Heal Sis is a community of women, and we all bring something different to the table. You know, there's a coach that deals with financial stuff, and then there's another coach that, just helps you, overall. And then obviously, I deal with personal branding and self development. So, self development, the aspect of that is just learning who you are as a person and how to project that on the outside. But a lot of it too has to do with your personal style and what you want to represent. And I've said my whole life, just dress for the position that you want, not the position that you have. And it's really trying to find your personal style that reflects who you are on the outside. A pattern that always comes up to me, everybody always says, like, I love your style, Lynn. Like, how do I get that? And it's more about find who you are and what style reflects you best, and then that will show on the outside. Because I'm sure you and we have very different styles, but what you would wear would look completely different on me and vice versa. And but it's not what you wear, it's how you wear it.
100%. I I once had a program manager. I had somebody complain about what I was wearing, and I misunderstood the complaint. It's actually a wild story. Is I thought that there was some women who had complained about some things in the past about me. So I thought it was a complaint about my skirt and in a female attacking female, because that's what I had experienced at that point in that job, unfortunately. But it turns out it was actually a male coworker who had complained about what I wore. And the comment was that because I always wore dresses and skirts, that I was opening myself up to be taken advantage of our clients. So when my program manager tells me this, of course, I'm in shock. I'm like, wait, what? How does that have anything to do with it? And then he said, look, do you want to be known as the pretty girl or the smart girl who gets stuff done? And in that moment, I said, oh, I will forever be known as both. And I really took it
Perfect.
on. And I was just like, how is this on me? So now it's kind of this running joke where um it's a mystery. Do I even own pants? Or and now caring for my husband who has brain cancer, he's in a wheelchair. I laugh all the time. I'm like, no, I transfer him in a heel and dresses. Like this is what I do. It's just it's who I am. it's a part of me that I love. I love the glitter and the glam, and that was one of the things I loved about pageantry. I just didn't expect to get all the extra bonus stuff, kind of like what you said about the self-development and then the growth of being around other like-minded women, and I absolutely love that. So I love that you're doing that with other women too, is saying like, hey, dress, find your style and dress for that and rock what works for you.
A little known fact about me is that I started in politics, not pageantry. And I tell this story, and I've told this story in interview. Um, I wanted to serve my community, so I started in politics, and then I just got tired of the polarizing back talk. And so I wanted to find a platform, which it ended up being pageantry, that helped me serve my community. And I always say it's that, but like in cuter outfits. And I too agree, like definitely to be both. I love that mindset. It's be true to who you are. And if you're authentic to yourself, it will show. And, people will gravitate towards you and your voice will amplify because of it.
That's something that I've only had one negative interaction when I've worn my sash with groups that I'm already affiliated with. But for the most part, people get it. It's like this is just a way to be able to expand and outreach what we're doing. For example, I just did a community service project with my women's veterans group and I was wearing my sash. So, of course, people come to me, oh, what's this title? What's this about? Tell me more. And then I said, oh, well, yes, this is this. However, I wear many hats. I'm also the president of this women's veterans group. And that's what we're here today for. We're here to be able to serve our community. And that's what we believe in. And I was able to talk about the group I was in. Whereas if I was just wearing a t-shirt and jeans, likely I wouldn't have had the amount of interactions that I had with people. And I think that's what's also beautiful. And what if I think like starting in politics, wanting to serve your community, and that is definitely a hard place to be in. I've done
For
some work locally, political work locally, and whew, that is
sure. It's a tough space, and it's a judgmental space, right? But we deal with the judgmental world, and I feel there's judgment towards pageantry in a lot of ways too, but I kind of like it sometimes because I find it to be an opportunity to educate people on what pageantry really is, what modern pageantry is. The system I belong to, which is Queen of the World. Our motto is beauty redefined. And I love that because it's just an opportunity to explain to the world that, we're modern women who want to just do more. And we have the ability to be our best selves, not only on the outside, but on the inside, and to help everybody else around us propel through that message.
I love that so much. I'm sure that comes through a lot being a mom, and I've had quite a few moms on the podcast thus far. And I love to talk a little bit more about what is it like being an adoptive mom, and how does being a part of the pageantry world really impact that relationship?
So yes, my son is now 9 years old. I fully adopted him at 2.5. I got full custody of him at 5 months old. He is my biological nephew. I lived in New York for 10 years prior to that. And my brother and his girlfriend then were having hardship and were unable to care for him. So what I thought would be a temporary situation turned out to be a little bit more permanent. And as that realization happened, I decided to move back to Rhode Island, where my family is from, and just raise Noah around my family because I felt like we needed a support system. And that was kind of where the beginning of my story started, right? So I moved back to Rhode Island. I was a single parent, like overnight, not knowing what I was going to do, couldn't work in the corporate position that I worked in prior to, and was like, what am I going to do? So I decided to bootstrap Face La Vie and, built my business with the baby on my hip and, struggle through that process. And that's kind of where the brainchild to teach other women how to do what I did and give them the blueprint so they don't have to struggle comes from. So I built my company. Now I've had it for about 8 years now. And I just continue moving forward in that direction. And it's afforded me the opportunity to prioritize being a single parent while raising my son. And the adoption process, especially when it comes to family, was very difficult, especially as a single parent, was very difficult. And, I just want to be the voice for my son and other children and to be a role model through him every day and say, you know what, no matter how hard something is to do, the right thing always feels the best in the long run. And it's the most fulfilling. It's not anywhere I thought I would see my journey going, but I am so fulfilled because of it.
That's so beautiful. I have a friend who has become a foster mom, and when she shared her story with me, I just thought, wow, like there's so many different layers of love. And people look at me and tell me all the time about like, oh, I don't know how you could do it, taking care of your husband, the condition he's in. And then I think, wow, like look at what you've done and the love that you've been able to provide and share. And I think that's something that everybody can do. They just do it in their own different way. And how beautiful to take something that you experienced that was sort of temporary, that turned permanent, and being able to turn it into something that really helped benefit you, your family, and now you're helping other women with that too. I think that's just absolutely amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It was, it's not easy, and I like to talk about it because, the things that maybe I struggled with, I can now teach women how to do in a faster manner so they don't have to struggle. And, just to be a guiding light and a holding hand to someone who's going through something like that. I felt so alone at that time. And now, after everything's done, I would like to, even if it's one person that reaches out and says to me, like, how did you do it? Or if I can guide them through it, it's important for me to have that message and be able to say that to people.
That goes back to being able to really support communities. So many of us are doing great things and we just want to be able to help other people. So I love that you're encouraging, like, hey, reach out if there's something that I can do that can help you improve your situation and what you're going through. I think that's huge because a lot of us don't ask for help and we just try and swim in the ocean that we're in. And that ties into, I'm sure, a lot of the work that you do with Lyft and also a lot of the work with your family too, because your brother has experienced some additional traumas as well. I'm not sure if you want to talk a little bit more about that and maybe some of the things that you've learned from there.
Yeah, I mean, so my story is always, I always have to take a deep breath with everything that I talk about with my story, just because it's still forever overwhelming to me. I'm
Mhm.
still processing. And I think, healing is a process and it's a journey, and you have ebbs and flows and you have highs and lows with it. One day you feel like you've mastered it, and the next day you still, you come to tears. And I think that is universally true for everyone.
Mm.
And like I said, Noah is 9 years old and he knows his whole story. I've told him everything. And, he has a relationship with my brother, who is his biological father. And he calls him dad, and he calls me mom, which may seem a lot weird to a lot of people. I go with mom and dad. And, my brother during COVID, he lost his legs to an overdose. He was in a coma and he wasn't responsive. And the only way to save his life was to have his legs amputated. And I made that decision. I
Mm.
had to make that decision for him. And it was a very difficult decision because I remember falling to my knees and praying and saying to myself, am I doing the right thing? And my first thought was, he's never going to teach his son how to slide into home base. And my brother was such a magnificent athlete growing up. We both were, but my brother was really talented. And that was really my first thought. And sometimes I still go through that because Noah now plays baseball, is very active in baseball, and really is taken to the sport. And, even then you say to yourself, well, he's can't teach him how to do that. But they have other things that they bond with, and life goes on. And, it's taught my son resilience,
Mm.
perseverance. It's all of those lessons, and humility and humor through any life situation. My brother, he really inspires me in that way because he has such a good sense of humor
Mm.
through the whole thing. And he's so resilient and he's persevered. And I know that Noah will get those qualities from him. And that portion of things, I'm grateful he grows up with acceptance and just seeing different families for what they are. It's a totally different life lesson. And when you're immersed in it, it's actually not a negative thing. It's all in how you the perspective, and it's all in how you teach your children, and how you prioritize those thoughts.
That's a really great point, is the perspective and being immersed into it. I think that when it becomes your normal, it becomes your day to day. You don't think of anything else, and all of the amazing life lessons that can come from experiences like this. That was very touching when you said about sliding into home plate, is it made me think of my husband's first journey with brain cancer. He had told me that they told him he would be lucky if he lived 2 months. He'd be lucky if he survived the surgery. And he said, going into surgery, they asked him again, like, hey, even if you do come out and you survive this surgery, you're never going to walk again. And what he said was his driving factor that pushed him is he said, well, I can still throw a ball and play catch in a chair with my son. So I believe at the time his son was 3. And I remember him telling me that. And I just thought, wow, like the power and the amount of love that he had for his son, that unfortunately his son was so young that he'd never really know. And when my husband's brain cancer came back a second time, it was teenage years. It was like the wrong time. There's no perfect timing. Let's be real. No perfect timing for
No,
anything.
no, like
But
no
just
matter how prepared you are, you'll never be prepared for the bad news. You'll never be prepared.
100%. So it's unfortunate the timing of it, because I feel like their relationship was already at that, typical teenager relationship. And now that my husband's nonverbal and he is in a wheelchair, it comes with additional barriers that his son has to work through kind of on his own and battle through. At this point, he's 19, he's off to college, those kind of things. So it changes things. So with your son being able to kind of grow up with this and
Mhm.
still have his dad, and it looked different than what you and him had planned, but being able to learn a lot of lessons from him from this experience is, it's a beautiful way to take an unfortunate thing and turn it into something that you can gain from it. And I think that's what a lot of people miss sometimes. We get trapped in the negative, we get trapped in the darkness, and we forget there's still light out there.
Well, I think that's where Lyft was inspired from, right? That's my passion project, was my personal healing journey. And after all was said and done, and I'm such a driver, and anybody that knows me knows, like, I'm like, let's go, let's get it, let's go, let's go. Come on, come on, come on. Like I wake up doing that. And my son will even say to me, like, Mom, why are you like this? I'm like, get used to it. Everyone knows me. I've been like this since birth. I'm going to continue being a driver. And I remember being in the hospital telling my brother, like, okay, you got 2 weeks to really learn how to walk before your legs become atrophy. So we don't have time to cry. You're going to get it done. Like I gave him a journal, and I said, you're going to write your feelings down, but every day you're going to learn how to walk. So that way you can get your prosthetics made, and we're going to go. And he did. But after everything was all said and done, and I hadn't been taking care of myself. I was back and forth to the hospital, and I was helping manage everyone else's feelings, my mom's especially. I mean, I can only imagine, I saw what she went through, but I wasn't a mom to her son. He's my brother, but that's a different relationship. So helping everybody else in their process and heal through their process, when all was said and done, I hadn't healed.
Mm.
I had gained some weight. I wasn't feeling great. I wasn't mentally thinking of anything. So I took to what I always knew, which was the gym. I've been a ballerina for 37 years, and just kind of getting back into that space of working out. And so I went back to the gym, and really it propelled me to think about my healing process. And those late nights on the treadmill and the Stairmaster really helped me mentally. And I put a program together to help people. And it starts with positive affirmation, how you speak to yourself, learning how to breathe through stressful situations, eccentric breathing, the meditation of it, practicing meditation, and the physicality of it, like yoga, whatever stimulates you, the gym. And in that process, I ended up really getting into fitness and becoming a competitor. And I won a national championship, and I'm a 6-time gold medalist through that. So,
Nice.
and that was 2 years ago. So I really drove myself to heal. And that's what inspired Lift. And, I'd like to give you the program for your stepson. So maybe a portion of it, if not all of it, can help him. And I'm actually in the process of writing a book. It's
Mm.
actually a children's book on healing. I won't reveal the name of it yet, but it's also a guided self-help book. So there'll be a lot of journaling that people can do along the way with it. And just to go through that process. And you don't have to do it every day, but when you feel the time is right, because journaling is something to me that really helps. And, the meditation really helps for me. And, just taking a few moments out of your day to think internally and to turn it back into yourself is really important. And that's why the gym and the fitness and the meditation has been so crucial in my journey of healing and just wanting to help other people to do the same.
I love that. I am definitely a big time active person, working out, always doing something. I joke that running is my antidepressant. And when I had to have a major knee reconstruction surgery in 2019, it did not go so well.
Yeah.
My my femoral nerve was pretty much severed, and to this day, I still can't contract my quad on my right leg, and it ended up resulting in the need for additional surgeries. I really struggled because I had relied so much on the physical outlet and not so much the mental outlet of, like you're saying, like journaling, the mindfulness piece. So it took a lot out of me to get to the point where when I was maxed out and overwhelmed, I would just drop everything and go for a run and all the world's problems were saved. And then having to figure out and learn something else that would work. I love that you're coupling both of those together. I created a gratitude journal as a way, like that's what helped me before I even knew I needed it. I started all this a few months before my husband's brain cancer came back. And that's what's really helped keep me going. So I love that you're doing one geared towards children because that is so needed, so necessary. I will happily keep a stockpile because I'm going to know so many people that could benefit from this. I know people right now that could benefit from this. But that's the beauty of it, is that it is mind and it is body, and tying those two together, it's so impactful.
Well, thank you. Again, going through my book, it is a book that is geared towards children, but anybody can use it. And if you're a parent and you're struggling with your child, or you're struggling to relate to your child or your children, or even if you're a teacher and you're struggling to relate to children in your classroom, this book will help with that. So
That sounds perfect. That's so true, is that learning ways that we can communicate with our youth and being able to help them through situations. I had another guest on where we were talking about family and family dynamics. And when we are able to teach our children something, we're able to impact future generations
mhm.
because we're not making them learn things on their own. And when we're teaching these good habits, the resiliency, the perseverance, all these things that sometimes we wish we had as children, or we want to make lives better for our youth, right? Especially if we have kids that we're involved with, like we want them to have a better childhood than what we had. But these are the things that are really going to make huge impacts for them, is having this ability to have a mind and body that is trained to be able to cope with the everyday stressors that we are going to experience in life.
Well, for me, I think that's the most important part too, is like, going back to being a mom. Being a mom has inspired me through this entire journey, and trying to be the best mom that I can for Noah, and trying to help him have outlets for what he's feeling and processing. And I don't know if your household is anything like my household, but my parents were kind of like, they're first generation here. So they're like, okay, well, you just go and you do your thing. And if you're crying, they don't ask why. They're just like, stop crying. And I want my child to be able to express to me what he's feeling, what is triggering him, why he's having these feelings, and identifying them, and identifying ways to cope with that in a healthy way, in a healthy manner. Because, like you said, running was your antidepressant. This whole process is a meditation over medication type of thing, like learning what triggers you and learning how to heal it for yourself internally, whether it's the physical, the mental, the combination, but all of it together. I think it's so important, and it's so important in today's world because we're living such a fast-paced and overstimulated world that we just don't take the time to do these things.
100%. I think when it comes to coping skills, there's a lot that are more healthy for you than others, but we're going to be drawn to what we're introduced to.
Mhm.
I think a lot of the times that's what happens with drugs, and that's what happens with our overdoses is people have pain and they want the pain to end. So if you have somebody say, "Hey, this helped me," or "This worked for me," they're going to try it. So just like being able to promote, "Hey, mindfulness helped me, working out helped me," being able to promote those things that are more long-term sustaining and less detrimental to the body long term, I think are huge game changers. And for me, my childhood, when you were saying like that, okay, you just go on, you're good. I was raised practically in a single parent home. My dad was deployed and lived in Saudi Arabia almost my entire life. So I was pretty much just raised by my mother, who kind of raised her younger brothers. She grew up in a very toxic childhood with lots of complex childhood traumas that she was just doing the best she can with what she had. And I remember if I came home crying, she would be like, "Oh, well, why are you crying?" And for her, like what she had to go through in childhood, she's like, "You're crying because someone doesn't like you? I don't understand this," you know? So she would try and cheer me up by saying, all the things, but in the end, I just wanted someone to validate my pain. And my mom and I have been able to have some good conversations about that. As we grow, I'm like, "I'm not mad at you. I don't blame you. That was the best you could do in that moment." But of all the stickers I have and the quotes that I throw out there, that's the one I think that hits her the hardest
Yeah.
is because she's like, "Yeah, I could have just validated the pain and said, I'm so sorry that hurts. I'm here for you," rather than trying to fix it or derail it.
But again, we do what we've been exposed to, and she wasn't exposed to that. So
Yeah.
your mom's capability then was coming from a different understanding. But that's also, again, when we go back to pageantry, why it is such an important thing to be able to introduce people to pageantry. It's why I stand here today because I think in pageantry plays such an important role these days, and people don't even realize that. We're a community of women that want to make sure those legacies and those important messages are set out, and we set the standard for that. And it's so important to keep pageantry up and modern pageantry. And I feel like in a lot of ways, people view pageantry as something of the past, but it's really important to be the voice and say, no, it really is very important to keep this up in the future because we are symbols of hope. We're symbols of the things that are good. We're symbols of positive messages and not perfection, but progress.
That's that's beautiful. We are symbols of hope, and that's a big reason why I started this podcast. I wanted to start it, of course, like 5 years ago, and finally just jumped in and said, "You know what? I'm just going to do it. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to go out there because want people to have hope. I want people to seek the light and know that there is good in this world. It is just often overclouded by darkness and people who are rooted in negativity and trauma that they haven't been able to heal from themselves." So I hope to accomplish that with this podcast and just spreading more hope. And I love that you're such a beacon of hope for your community and all these different amazing things that you're involved in and that you're doing. I'm I'm so so thrilled that we met and that we're connecting over this more, and I hope to continue to connect and support each other as we go through this crazy thing we call life. I love this chat. I feel like we could talk for hours. So I definitely want to give you a few minutes if there's anything that you feel like we've missed, if you want to recap anything or leave us with some final nuggets of all of your wisdom that you have.
Well, thank you. I mean, you did reach out to me. I had posted something that was a very vulnerable post to me. And I debated for so long, do I share it? Because we debate, do I make this something that's public? And I also didn't want to be looked at as vulnerable and weak and not able to fulfill my duties as a queen. And I thought about it and thought about it and thought about it. And I said, no, I want to talk about it. So, this year I'm not doing fitness as much because I was hit by a drunk driver, and he collided with me on the wrong side of the highway going 75 miles an hour with no headlights on. Really impacted my life for the last year. And that was a hard journey, but I persevered through it all because there are worse things, right? And I have the ability to. And I thought and looked inward and I said, I'm going to share my story with everybody because I want to show people, it's not going to slow you down unless you let it. And the same thing, like as far as I shared the fact that I have tumors, and I've had tumors for quite some time now. At first, they just thought it was a fatty tumor, and it turned out that they weren't. It's called liposarcoma with trabeculations. So what ends up happening is a very rare thing. It presents like a fatty tumor, but they amass very big, and mine don't happen to be encapsulated. So they branch out kind of like spider webs. So you get a piece and then they come back, and you get a piece and they come back. So the great thing about it, which is also why I chose not to share it for so long, was there are children that have cancer out there that have never, seen a playground. So I felt kind of guilty saying like, this was my process, or even feeling bad for it. But, it's annoying. And the good thing is it's a 95% survival rate, and I've survived it. The annoying thing is the recurrence rate is also 95%. So it's like something that I anticipate struggling with kind of for life. And I'm okay with that. And I've accepted that as part of my journey. And it's definitely annoying. And you definitely get annoyed when you're like, okay, I need another surgery, or I have to go to the hospital. But, I definitely I'm not without struggle. And I want to show people, just because you have things that are not so pretty in your personal life or your daily life doesn't mean that you still can't go after your dreams and do everything that you set out to do, and don't let anything hold you back.
I love that. I think that's so perfect, is that a lot of times that we stress compare with others and we downplay what we've gone through, when the magnitude that we can impact when we share and speak openly of our story. And I think you are doing so much of that, again, with all the many things that you've done and been able to grow through in your life. And I'm honored to be able to have you on this podcast and have these conversations. And yes. I just want to thank you again so much for your time and coming on and chatting with me and sharing more of your story. We'll have links in the description so people can follow you and support you and all the amazing things that you're doing.
Thank you so, so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you for reaching out. I hope that you are able to talk to some of my sister queens very soon, because they all have amazing stories, and their journeys are just as special too. And they have a lot to tell. And just so you know, you are not just trying, you are doing what your heart set out to do. And I am very proud of you as well.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And I look forward to meeting and sharing more amazing stories.
Okay. Hugs.
Thanks. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. If you found this episode inspiring, please share it with someone you never know who needs more light in their life. May this serve as a reminder that there's always darkness in the world. Do not let it consume you. Always seek the light. Please take a moment to do the good old subscribe, rate, and review. Your support means so much to me, and it helps me spread more light and love. Until next time, be kind, be loving, be human, and don't ever let anyone steal your hope.